was going to say he's got a cheat sheet with some questions. I hope either he's going to just wing this.
How about if you guys introduce yourselves?
Do you have a preference? You want Bailey?
Yeah, Bailey.
Bailey?
Yeah, so my name is Bailey Krause, and I've been a funeral director here for just over 4 years. I was a funeral director in Wisconsin prior to moving to Bozeman, and this has been something that I've known that I wanted to do since I was like 15.
It's good that you knew. I didn't know what I wanted to do when
Right? I don't know what I want to do when I'm 57.
Mortuary science is what
Mortuary
it's called,
science,
yeah.
yes.
So that would be, when you want to be a funeral director, that's pretty much what you have to go to school for and study for. But yeah, that's what I chose to go into. That was the path I knew I wanted, so.
So I was wondering, what is it that makes it a science?
So the science part of it is more the caring for the individual body. So a lot of times the science behind it is the embalming process, possibly the cremation, some of those science aspects behind it.
So more of like the logistics and the operational part?
Yes, yep, absolutely.
My name is Chris Remley. I'm also a funeral director here at Dokken Nelson. My wife and I also in Dokken Nelson Funeral Service. This is my 32nd year here at Dokken Nelson, so all of my career has been here at Dokken Nelson.
Chris, I saw that you started from business and finance.
Yeah, and unlike Bailey, that was not really on my radar. Yes, I got a degree from Montana State University in business finance with a minor in econ. When I got out of school, wasn't quite sure what my career path was going to look like, and I was working with the old owner here at Dokken Nelson for probably a couple years while I was finishing up school, just working part-time, and he kind of just threw it out there and said, why don't you go to mortuary school and come help me out? I could use a hand. So I had graduated. It was about a year and a half after my graduation from Montana State that I went to mortuary school, and then came back in February '95 and then started working with Jim at that point. Yeah, so I probably couldn't even have told you where the funeral, I grew up in Bozeman, I probably couldn't even have told you where the funeral home was. So it wasn't on my radar. It was just one of those things that, yeah, really just blessed that the opportunity came about, and just friends with the Mitchells, and they extended the opportunity to come in and join them with their business. It just worked out really well.
Could somebody get into that line of work without a degree?
So we have a lot of people that work with us as more part-time staff, and I would say that's more the case that you're talking about, where they're later in life and they feel this calling to help people out in the funeral service world. They aren't licensed, and they don't do things that only we as licensed people can do. So they more help out on services, they might help out with clerical work, or even help bring someone into our care from where they pass away. But there are certain things that only we as licensed funeral directors are able to do.
Oh, so there is a licensing in this?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And so just on the other side of that question, so if someone, say, for a second career decides that I'm tired of doing what I'm doing, I've always been drawn to funeral service, it's not required to have a 4-year college degree. The state of Montana in their licensure requires that you have to have at least 2 years of college credits, and then you have to go to mortuary school, and you have to have a 1-year apprenticeship. So you do not have to have a 4-year degree to become a licensed funeral director in the state of Montana. So we do have people that do that. They choose funeral service as a second degree, and maybe they don't have a college degree, but they had 2 years of college credits and they didn't pursue, finishing up their major, but they have enough college credits to allow them to go to mortuary school and then complete the requirements to become a licensed funeral director in Montana. And every state is different. That's Montana's requirement for licensures. Some states it's a required 4-year degree. Some states, I don't know what Colorado is now. Colorado was non-licensure at all. You didn't have to have any licensure to practice mortuary science in Colorado, but that's since changed. I don't know how the legislation's changed.
Speaking of licensing and skills, what would you say is the most important quality that somebody needs to have to be in this line of work?
Without a doubt, in my opinion, is compassion and people skills. I can teach anyone to be in the prep room or be an embalmer or run the crematory, but if you don't have care and compassion for the families that you're meeting with day in and day out, that's just a skill I can't teach you. And what we do here is very much in tune with how families are feeling, and you have to be able to match them and come in and meet them where they're at. yes, sometimes we're sitting in those arrangement conference and families are laughing because their grandmother was 98 years old and they lived a wonderful life. There's other situations where you've got a teenager that dies in a motor vehicle accident. You have to be able to have that care and compassion for each one of those families and meet them where they're at. And it's not a business transaction. When people come in our door, we're here to serve them in the best way we can. And so there are people that doesn't always click with them. And so I can't teach that skill set. And I would say we've been really blessed here. The people that we have working for us get that. That's something they totally believe in, and just as much as Monica and I do, that's a key. It's critical for our business. Bailey and I can both attest to seeing funeral directors that it's a business transaction and it shows. And I think probably where we see it the most is when we go somewhere else for a funeral for a friend or a family member, and you watch another funeral home directing a service, or you're one of your family members and you're in on an arrangement conference, and it's just like, okay, note to self, I'm not doing that to my families. But I would say, in my opinion, that's probably the most critical piece of it, is just having that compassion, having that understanding with families, and just having people skills to be able to communicate well with families and meet them where they're at.
Yeah, that covers it completely. I was going to say just genuine care. You can't fake that in this business. You have to have that, and you have to care about the families and the people that you're serving, point blank.
Have you seen growth?
I would say absolutely. I mean, the more families that you care for, the more opportunities you have to kind of learn how you can be your best self to walk alongside that family. And there's just so many situations. Part of why I like this job is no day is the same either. So I think, yes, you can have that experience and get better at it, but you never know what you're going to walk in on either. So,
can you name a skill that you use every day?
That's hard. I would say listening, to be honest. I mean, so much of what we do when we sit down with a family is we just need to listen to them and kind of guide them once we know what do they need from us. We're not here to push a certain agenda or give them a certain thing that we think they need. We kind of need to listen to them, meet them where they're at. So I think that's so important. Yes, we have the knowledge and we're going to guide them, but we need to know how we can offer and help that family out.
How do you handle, and we talked a little bit about that in the previous meeting, but how do you handle different belief systems and people who come here and they might not be Christians? And does that affect your beliefs to some extent?
I think for me, regardless of someone's beliefs or how they're walking in the door, they just lost a loved one. And that's first and foremost what my job is to do, is to take care of them and help them through that process. So regardless of beliefs, a lot of times it's just making sure that I'm not assuming things that I don't know. So if it's a belief that I'm not familiar with, it's making sure, are the things that we're providing, do they align with what you need and your beliefs? And we are able to accommodate that to the best of our ability, and just making sure we're not being insensitive to what they need in that process. And I don't think that changes what I believe personally, because just because I'm helping honor someone's beliefs and what they need doesn't mean I have to also believe those same things.
Yeah, there's a level, I think, of empathy that you have to have for the family to connect with them, but you've got to be able to separate, because if you meet with 150 families a year, you can't go home every night and take on that grief or take on that loss. So we empathize with the family, understanding, like Bailey said, when they walk in the door, we need to just listen and meet them where they're at. But at that same time, you have to be able to separate a little bit. So I think even in that belief piece, that just, this is what they need to work through this grief process, and we're going to make that happen as best we can. And I think a lot of times too, there's sometimes people will come in and we're like, what do you need? We may not even know.
Yeah.
We may not even know what their needs are, because maybe we've not served someone with this belief, and they educate us, and then we take notes and we know next time when we meet with a family of a particular faith.
Yeah. So you cater every belief.
Correct.
Has that affected the way you see what everybody calls that higher entity?
I think Bailey could speak more to it, coming from Milwaukee area, where there was a lot more diversification. we've always, I guess we would say primarily Bozeman, you've got the Jewish community, you've got the Catholic community, you've got the Protestants. So there's not a lot of Buddhists or Gypsies or Greek Orthodox. So we don't see as much diversity. In some of the larger metropolitan areas, they have funeral homes that are specific to those areas. So there's a funeral home that's specifically a Jewish funeral home in a lot of larger cities. That's all they serve only the Jewish families. There's maybe a funeral home that only does Buddhist funerals. So being in Bozeman, where there's only 2 funeral homes, we have to be able to serve all of those families and all of those faiths well. I don't think it's interesting, to see the different faith backgrounds that people have. Just growing up in Bozeman, it was Protestant or Catholic type of thing, so I didn't have a lot of exposure to those other religions. So when they do come into our facility, or we do and go and help them, it's interesting to see how they do conduct their services, and some of them are, not that they're different, but they're really beautiful and they're well done, and you're like, wow. So you really see some different aspects of how different faith communities grieve and how they come alongside families, and what are those rituals that they have in order to say goodbye to their loved ones. It's interesting. We're seeing more and more of that as Bozeman gets bigger, but as I say, Bozeman as a whole is pretty. Wouldn't you agree?
Still a small town. Yeah, it's still.
I mean, compared to Milwaukee,
yeah,
it's
you just
quite
don't
a
have
bit.
that metropolitan kind of diversity as much.
Is there like labor involved with this itself? Like, do you guys do all the prep? Somebody handles the body and all these things?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think people are always surprised because they'll say, I'll tell them I'm a funeral director, and they'll say, "Oh, cool," and they kind of assume that I'm the one that cares for the family, and then they're like, "But who does the embalming or the cremations?" And I say, I do that as well, right? But that's so much of our job is there's this whole encompassing idea of all of the things that we do. I always tell people the majority of my job is still working with the family. It is those people interactions of helping them file death certificates, write an obituary, plan services, kind of let them know what's next in this process. That's the biggest part of my job, but there is also kind of the caring for the individual who's coming into our care, whether that's giving them a bath and preparing them for their loved ones to say a final goodbye, the embalming process, getting them dressed and casketed prior to their burial, and even as far as actually completing the cremation. That's all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you have hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that too is different in a smaller community. I went to mortuary school in Dallas, and everything was very compartmentalized. So our staff answers our phones 24 hours a day. So if we get a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm on call, I'm going to the nursing home or the hospital, wherever that person passed away, and bring them into our care. If that body needs to be embalmed, one of our licensed directors is going to do that. We're going to meet with the families. In the bigger cities, they work kind of 8 to 5. When I was in Dallas at 5 o'clock, they turned the phones over to an answering service. So if a call came in at 2 o'clock in the morning, the funeral directors were not bothered. The answering service directs the phone call to a service that takes care of the removal or the transfer from the place of death. If that body needs to be embalmed, they would take that body to an embalming service that would embalm the body. And when I got to work at 8 o'clock the next morning, there might be an email that said, Mr. Jones passed away last night. He's here at our care facility. He's been embalmed. We'll have him delivered to the funeral home at 9 a.m. I didn't have to get out of bed. But we're here, where we're in a smaller community, that role of funeral director has a lot broader scope. I mean, we're going out and setting up cemeteries. All of those things fall into our bucket just because it's just a smaller community. We don't have the scale to where you can compartmentalize to have a removal service, an embalming service, staff that all they do is answer your phones after hours.
Has that experience changed the way you see life? Or because this is like you have one-on-one time with a vessel that is empty of what we call soul. How is that thing? Like, how does it feel?
I think there's 2 ways to look at it. You could do this job day in and day out and take it all home with you and be a very bitter person. Or I think I actually have probably a more positive outlook on life because I'm around this every day and I see all of the things that everyday people are going through. And I'm not exempt to that. I know that. I know that death will touch my life many, many times, but I don't think it's a place where you can dwell on. I think you have to make the most of the situation you're in and enjoy life while you can. That's the biggest thing I see. And there's days where you take it home. It's impossible not to. You see a lot of really heavy things and you're watching people go through the most horrible times of their lives. So yes, you do take it home sometimes, but you have to be able to separate that and still live your life.
Chris, I'm also interested in how do you feel? Not when you go back home so much, like when you, and probably now it has become something that it's kind of a process.
Mm-hmm.
But has that process been an advantage in your life?
Yeah, I would agree with Bailey. You learn, I guess from my perspective, you learn that there's, in this role, working and being around death all the time, you realize there are no guarantees. I mean, I can step off the curb tonight after work and my days on this earth are done. And we've seen families like that where their loved one got up to go to work and didn't come home. And so it's a reality. And so I think you live your life a little bit differently, knowing that there isn't a guarantee that I'm going to get tomorrow. I can be driving home. So it does. And I think, like Bailey said, more in a positive way. It's not a doom and gloom, and it's just, you know what? I woke up, put my feet on the floor, let's have a day, right? We're not, and you kind of go from there, and you just take one day at a time because you're not promised tomorrow.
What do you think is the most emotionally taxing part?
By far, just traumatic deaths, young people, unexpected accidents, suicides. Those are the ones where those are the days that none of us want to be here. The family certainly doesn't want to be here, and we don't. I mean, we know we have to be here to help them, but those are the days that, like Bailey said, those are the days where you do take it home. You don't, it's like, because you're still thinking about that family that, whose teenager rolled their car or something along those lines. So those are the ones that weigh heavy on you, and it'll be for the whole week, or it's kind of like, when that service is done, you can take a deep breath knowing that you made it through that, because it's heavy. It really is when you have young people or unexpected deaths. And our mind is geared to program that, okay, I'm going to be on this earth for 80 or 85 years if I'm lucky, and then that's kind of the plan. And when someone, you pass away when you're 85, that's kind of the natural thing of life. But when these accidents and other situations come up, those are the ones that are by far the most taxing. At least on me personally, those are rough days, rough weeks when you're meeting with those families, for sure.
Bailey, do you find more taxing talking to a family or dealing with the body?
I would say working with the family. That's the emotionally taxing part. But I also think what an honor that I get to be the person to guide that family and be there as a source of comfort for them. You have to think those people are opening up their doors to the most intimate part of their lives as far as the grief that they're feeling and the things that they have to share with us. And that's pretty much, that's an incredible honor to be able to have us serve those families. As far as caring for the individual body, that's just something that we do with great respect. We're the last person that likely will care for that family's loved one, whether it be getting them dressed in a favorite pair of clothes or making sure their hair is brushed and just right. That's incredibly dignified and honor that we get to do that.
I see. So correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm seeing here is that the hardest part is dealing with the life part and not with the not life part. Is this
Agreed.
correct?
I would agree. Yeah.
Because that, to me, like the hardest part would be like, oh my God, like there is a dead person in here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Oh my God. But to you, it's like, okay, we got this, that it is what it is. But then the family is the biggest challenge, let's say.
And I would say, and Bailey answered it too, people always, it's interesting in my years of doing this, when you tell people what you do, it's either a conversation starter or a conversation stop. I mean, it's like to change the subjects like that. They either have 101 questions about what you do for a living, or they're like, change the subject because it's like death is a total taboo. So yeah, it's just an interesting, how society in itself looks at. And yes, when you first start and you touch the first person that's passed away, yeah, that's different. But as Bailey mentioned, it's whatever we do with their loved one it's dignified. And I have always told our staff, it's like, we're going to treat this person as if their loved one is walking with us the entire time. It's complete 100% dignity with whatever we're doing with their loved one. But that's just, it's 10% maybe of what our day consists of. So people are like, how can you do that day in and out? Dealing with dead people. It's like, well, 90% of my day is talking to the family or trying to make arrangements. And so that's a majority. And that's why, kind of going back to your first question, that's why number one priority is being able to have social skills, being able to interact with families, because dealing with the deceased is a really small sliver of what we're doing. And in our environment where you have to do everything, you've got to have that skill.
I see. Yeah.
So yeah, the body piece is, I think there's some people that maybe don't always get over that, but it's that part of it is, like Bailey, it's really an honor. I mean, to be able to get someone ready for their loved ones, to see them and give them a better memory picture of perhaps their loved one in the hospital when they aren't looking their best, or they're at home on hospice and not looking great, and they come in and they bring in their favorite shirt, and we get them all ready and bathe them and comb their hair, and just a much better memory picture. There's a lot of satisfaction in that. And that's, I think with me anyhow, that's what kind of keeps you going. It's like, all right, we did something for this family that was good. That was something that was needed. You can kind of just, they're relieved. They give you a hug and you're like, I don't even know these people and they're giving me a hug, right? It's that powerful that you've done this for them and for their loved ones. So those are the kind of things that kind of recharge your battery. Even though sometimes you're worn out, those are the things that kind of give you a boost.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Bailey, we'll talk about all the challenging things. What would be your favorite part of the job?
That's hard. I love what I do. I really do. And I always think about, I've known I want to do this since I was very young, and there's nothing else I can really picture doing at this point in my life. So it's such kind of something that I'm passionate about, but there's so many things that I enjoy about it. It's hard work, but again, it's that idea of like, after helping a family, again, they've just opened their arms to me to kind of be a part of the family for a little bit, and knowing that I've helped them in the best way possible. That's what brings me satisfaction in my job. But I also think kind of the intriguing part of what I like about my job is the idea that, again, no 2 days are the same. You can walk in at 8 a.m. in the morning and think you know what your day looks like, and a lot of times you don't. It's going to change, and that's just the nature of the business that we do, which is both challenging and kind of exciting at the same time.
Would you change something? And it's okay if there's anything that you would like to change, that's totally fine.
Honestly, that's a hard question, because sure, would it make sense that people don't have to lose their loved ones, but that's a part of life. And I don't have the power to control that, and I know that. And sure, those hard situations, again, I wish I had the control to change those things. But I had read an article that had mentioned just when you realize that you can't change the fact that someone died, makes this a little bit easier, knowing that I can't change that fact. The only thing I can do from now on is just help that family. So yeah. That's my answer to that question. I don't know if that's.
I thought she was going to say nights and weekends off.
Yeah.
She wants
a little
8
bit
to
more
5.
time off. Yeah.
Yeah, that means you wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
It does answer.
Yeah.
Chris?
I guess it was a totally different beast when I started. I mean, we've really got I think we've got a decent work-life balance. When I started here, there was only 2 of us, so if I could change something, it would be something that happened in the past to where I would have had more time with my kids, just because it was all-consuming. I mean, you were on call. There was 2 of us, and we answered the phones, and we worked every weekend, and so there was probably 16, 17 years of doing that. So that piece of it wasn't ideal. Obviously, it got us to where we're at, to where we were able to get the business to a level where we could hire more people, so we could get an investment in time to get more staff, and then also being able to say, Bailey doesn't have to work like that, and our other staff doesn't have to do that. Realizing that's where I came from, that's not where we want to end up. We want to have a better work-life balance for our staff and even for Monica and I. So I would say that was probably the biggest thing. It was all stuff in the past. Where we're operating now, we got a great crew, and I think everything, not a whole lot I would change. Yeah.
There was this, there still is this website. It's called World Clock, and it has one side it's counting deaths, and the other side is counting births, and you can see it spinning all the time, which is quite the experience when you like, oh, another one, and oh, you know, people just go.
Yeah.
What is, like, do you work every day?
That's where the on-call piece comes. Yeah.
Basically.
I would say
yeah.
I would say on average, yeah, right?
Yeah, because I think we had done the math at some point, and it's possibly a little over a person a day logistically passes away in Gallatin County.
Well,
but you have to
more,
think how big Bozeman is now.
Yeah, probably even more than that. I mean, because you figure we probably, just with the numbers that we serve, the families that we serve, it would be over one death a day. Not that it happens every day, but it's, you know, three people may die on Tuesday, and no one will pass away on Wednesday or Thursday. But if you average it out over the year, you know, there's probably a couple people a day that die in Bozeman. You figure all told in Gallatin County.
Yeah, and I think that's the part where we say we have someone available 24 hours a day. Again, you call at 2 a.m., one of our staff is going to answer the phone. That doesn't mean we've got people sitting at the front desk 24 hours a day, but we are ready and available because we understand that someone can pass away in the middle of the night or the middle of the day, and we need to be ready to serve that family. So a lot of times, I mean, majority of our staff, yes, we're working 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday, but we take rotations of weekends, holidays, again, trying to kind of balance that. Not every funeral director needs to work Christmas, but one of us does, and just rotating that so we're able to have a little bit more work-life balance and still care for the families that need it. But there's a lot of jobs too that are around the clock when you think about it. A hospital never fully shuts down, right? Absolutely. So we're kind of to be readily available to help those people at their time of need, not knowing when that's going to be.
But the hospital has the element of hope involved a lot. There is no hope here. Here's the end of the line. So it's a different work.
Yeah, a lot of what you're asking is things that most people do not think about until a situation brings them to have to have this conversation. So a lot of times the first time someone's even thinking about the questions of what we do and what questions we're going to ask is when they're sitting down with us after a loved one's passed away. And that's, again, just kind of coming back to that, death is not talked about a lot. Even though it's going to touch every person in this room and every person in this community at some point in their life, it's just something that a lot of people don't want to talk about.
Yeah. And that's, I think, where you see the different faith communities, that's where that hope comes in, that there is something beyond here. And we'll see a lot of that with families. You'll see how families handle grief is a lot of it's determined on, you know, their faith background and what they believe is next, right? So, exactly. So you see people dealing with death a lot differently just based on what their faith beliefs are.
Mm-hmm. You think automation will affect this industry at all?
It's hard to say. I don't know that you can make an automation system to be genuine and caring and compassionate. And maybe that's down the road for us, but right now there's a lot of those personal skills that I don't know that someone else could do for us.
They'll help you write an obituary.
Yeah.
That's the only,
will.
AI will really,
yeah.
I mean, it does. It's like, I'll have families come in and we'll just sit down. It's like, and they're like, we're stuck. I said, well, here, let's try this. And you just, like, let's just start bullet pointing. Born, where you grew up, where you went to high school. Just plug it into that, and then it gives them, and it's amazing. So we can use it a little bit, and even going to when you started talking about AI, we had a conference where they're actually developing computer software and AI to replicate the deceased. And it was the National Funeral Directors and this company, which designed this program. A gal had lost her young daughter, I think to leukemia or something, and her favorite dress, her favorite shoes, and they created this character, and they put goggles on her mom, and she could see her. Last place she saw her running in the park, and it was supposed to be this. It was supposed to help her mom, through the grief process. And frankly, I don't know that. I think that just helps you. It takes you out of the reality. It's like anytime she put those goggles on, she could see her daughter running in the park with her favorite dress, and I think it could cause problems where this company was trying to go with it. I understand they were trying to help her through that process, but when you said that, that's the first thing that came to mind. It was like, oh, but they're basically recreating this person through AI to where you can have a cup of coffee with them in the morning, and they'll talk to you on the computer, and so.
That sounds like an episode from Black Mirror.
So, it's something that's designed to help. Would it truly be helpful, right? Does it keep you stuck in that grief pattern to where you've got to be able to move on, right? You can't just throw on the AI goggles and go see your loved one and have a cup of coffee with them. But it was
for the living, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and at that point you start separating yourself, because I would rather be watching my daughter play in the park through my AI goggles than interacting in this world, the here and now. So there was a company that started doing that. It was in Japan, I believe, but it was pretty powerful. But at the same time, I was like, ooh, I don't know if that's the road you want to go down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bailey, if you had a mic and you could speak to the whole world, what would you tell them?
Oh boy. Get ready. No, I'm just kidding. You know what? It's hard. I don't know. Again, it's one of those things I always say that death is going to touch every family, and I guess my goal is that us as funeral professionals and funeral directors, that we can just be there as a resource for families. And a lot of times what I tell people is my goal is just to make this as easy as possible for you, and to hopefully take some things off of your plate during a really difficult time. And I don't think that matters what family I'm serving, where I'm serving that family. That's just really my goal as a funeral professional. And it's something I care about so deeply. And I think most funeral directors do. But I think a lot of times people are so scared of the funeral home and the funeral directors. And really we're here to be a resource for the family and help them out.
And also you would tell them to get ready.
Yeah, yeah, get ready. Yeah, and I mean that, I guess I could mean that in...
That has wisdom.
Yeah, there is a little bit to that, because again, so many people don't want to talk about death, but the reality is, again, it's going to touch us all someday. So if we can at least have that conversation and be prepared, and we do that with a lot of people. People will come in and talk about their own funeral arrangements. And there's a lot of times they're doing it for themselves, but more importantly, they're doing it for the family they know they're going to leave behind. It's an easier conversation for the kids when mom and dad have already talked about whether their wishes were burial or cremation. So there's a lot of advantages and benefits to be willing to have that conversation before you die.
Chris, if you had the mic, what would you say to the world?
Doggone, I thought you were going to quit with Bailey on that.
That was a hard one.
Oh shoot!
You had time to think about it, so you.
I know. I got the advantage. It didn't help. I needed more time. Obviously, there's more than one perspective, certainly from the funeral side of things. But even getting ready in general, it's like tell your loved ones what you need to tell them. I mean, there's no guarantees, right? You got to get right with your family. You see these families that are embittered from when someone passes away, and that you don't. That situation can't get rectified at that point, right? So it's there's a lot of things to get ready for, whether it's your funeral arrangements, whether it's your spirituality, whether it's getting right with your family members, because there are. I mean, you can walk out the door in the morning, we see it. It's like to just forgive and move on, and it's I guess that would be kind of the general gist of it, because I think there's a lot of things that can be petty, that can be pretty meaningless in light of death, that really is minutia, right? In the grand scheme of things, what you might be arguing with your mom about, or your sister or your brother out, is pretty irrelevant. I mean, if in light of how things could actually be. And I know I had that conversation with my wife when we'd have like little hiccups with the kids or something, and I may have just met with a family that lost their 14-year-old daughter, and I just like, this is pretty trivial what we're having an argument about based on the family I just sat down with, you know, and it really just puts things in perspective.
I like what you said. Forgiveness is such a big part.
Right, and bitterness just eats at the person that's holding it in, right? There's a lot of life to live, and if you're not willing to forgive people, it can be a long life.
For sure. Well, thank you so much, guys.
Did we pass?
You passed with flying colors.